Hi everyone, James here from F9 Audio and the Freemasons, and welcome to the next instalment of our award-winning Drumtrax range, Drumtrax 4 21st Century House. And this is what you get. 8 sets of professionally produced, mixed and then stem-mastered drum productions that have been formatted in full club arrangements for Ableton 9.1.4 onwards, Logic 9 and Logic X, and WAV. Now, I'm sure you guys, like me, just want to get on with making tracks, but sometimes at the beginning you get bogged down in drum production. When you pull up these pages, you will have no latency issues, you will have no plugin chains. You can just start pulling up instruments and creating straight away. And it's this functionality that has gained previous Drumtrax releases, 5-star reviews in Sound on Sound magazine, and 10 out of 10 reviews from our professional users. But here's the best bit, and this is what sets Drumtrax apart from any other sample pack. Once we'd finished the production at F9, we sent these up to Cass Irvine at Wired Masters. Now, Wired Masters are stem mastering specialists, and they pretty much pioneered the process in the UK. Cass's work is constantly heard on sound systems across the planet, and he's trusted by some of the biggest names in electronic music. And it's this 2-stage process that really set these pages apart, because when you pull them up, you can trust the kicks. You know the claps are going to cut through. You know the hats are going to sizzle like they should. And most importantly, all of your production decisions that you make whilst using these will be built on a solid set of foundations, and that can change everything. Okay, so let me show you all of this in action. We're going to start off in Logic and then flip to Ableton. This is one of the pages called Pendulum, and it's 125 BPM, and it sounds like this. And this is key. You can see here on most of the main channels there's no plugins at all. It's only on some of the effects parts that we've got reverberated claps, tom reverb and a filtered version of the kick, and it's basic processing. So you will get no latency, you will get no problems. You can just start. And first thing I want to do is pull up a couple of bass sounds. Now, this whole release comes with 14 bass patches, but these aren't just standard multi-samples. I don't know if you've discovered over the years, but many VSTs chuck out a huge quantity of sub-information that really needs to be controlled before you can actually use them. Now, on all of these 14 bass patches, we have done all of that hard work for you using the extensive F9 outboard. It's from a variety of sources, some analog and some digital, but most importantly, all of these patches were designed to work with these drum tracks. So let's pull a couple up now. We're going to go software instruments. We'll have 2. And I'm going to layer 2 together here. So the first thing I'm going to do from the library that I've already pre-installed, I'll show you how to do this in a little bit later. We're going to pull up the London bass patch. It's that incredibly modern kind of new version of FM knocky bass. And let's just put a part straight in. And I'm just going to quickly quantize that and check it. And now for the second patch, I want to use a sub. So I'm going to use the Substance patch. I'm going to open the ESX24 control, turn the voicing to mono, and increase the release time a little bit. There we go. Within 2 minutes of opening the page up, we're already starting to make well-balanced and coherent sounding music. And the best bit is you're already in a club format thanks to these arrangements. So there's absolutely no chance of you getting stuck in the dreaded 8-bar loop. And we can do just some really simple things here, like take that sub part out just for that section. If you're listening to this on laptop speakers, I would ask you please to listen again on studio monitors or a really good pair of headphones and just hear the quality of the sonics. And with that in mind, here's just some of the drum machine hardware that was used during the creation of this pack. So we've nipped over to Ableton now, and let's try something along the classic house vein. We're at the DeepMind page. It runs at 120 BPM, and I have added already a piano part. It's using our Forte Evolutions piano. If you're not sure what this is, do check it out on the F9 products pages. It's one of the only piano multi-samples that has been designed specifically for house and EDM and contemporary pop. So I've also pulled up a 101 bass patch for this production. The patch is set polyphonic, so I'm just going to come over here and turn the glide on. Okay, so let's tidy things up and get rid of the wrong notes first, and then I'm going to take some of the notes that just happen at the end of the bar and extend them so that they're in a legato style, so you hear the glide kick in that kind of classic house bass style. Now, it sounds like we may have just a touch too much filter drive there, so I'm going to use the rack controls just to pull that back a bit. And I'm guessing we should probably sidechain the bass against the kick as well, because I can hear it clashing a little bit, so we'll get that done nice and quickly. Now, I do want to make a quick point about the operating level of these pages, because we've had to strike a fine balance here. All soundware and all sample packs are very loud normally because the content is normalized, and that can be absolutely useless when you're trying to put stems together like this. So we think we've got the best of both worlds here. We've set these up so that they're kind of peaking around K-12 using the K metering system, and that gives enough headroom for these to actually work. But if you're not comfortable with that and you're one of those producers that does like to push things, just grab all of the faders of the projects before you begin and bring them down. They will all come down as kind of coefficients of each other. So in other words, they will come down together and they will rebalance perfectly. Now, also, you will notice on both Logic and Ableton pages that we're using just compressors on the output, but they are set to clip. So it's a way of kind of getting an analog style of limit from the actual pages. But if this is getting too much for you, just turn it off and put whatever you want whilst you're working on the master fader. Now, the next thing I want to show you are the drum kits that are present on every single one of these pages. This includes Ableton and Logic. Using Ableton, we're using the Ableton rack system, and in Logic, it's ESX24 patches. So we've basically chopped out every single drum from these pages and put them up as a drum kit across the keyboard. Now, on some of the pages, we've already got some parts running, but you can add your own parts and instantly start to customize these pages. There are full instructions within the release of how you can add these kits and additional sound menus into your own library. Now, obviously, you want to customize these drum tracks to make everything your own as well, and we've got an entire range of additional content to help you do that. We've already talked about the drum kits, but we also have drum menus that have all the different sounds laid out per drum type across keyboards. Now, obviously, this is perfect fodder for hitting in with pad controllers and other devices like Ableton Push. But as well as singling out all of the loops from the Drumtrax, we also have added a ton of additional content, including claps, snare loops, crunch loops, hat loops, percussion loops, shaker loops, cymbal loops, and grunge and effects loops. And with this as a perfect way to show them off in this page using Ableton Session View, you can pick and choose bits that you want. Now, one thing to bear in mind with these additional loops are that when you're using them, you are outside of the scope of the stem mastering. So keeping your principal sounds like your kicks, your claps and your hats from the main stem pages, for me, is absolutely vital for the integrity of the actual sonics. Now, to install this content with Live, it's dead easy. There's a Live pack, double click it and go through the normal procedure. But now let's go over to Logic. Now, obviously, Logic doesn't have Ableton Session View, but we have come up with some great alternatives. This page that's included in the pack contains all of the different sound menus set up with a little MIDI example of how to use them. And we've converted all of the content to Apple loops. And let me show you now how to actually install that. So first of all, open up the Apple Loop browser. Now, the button to do that is in a different place on Logic 9, but I'm just going to show you here in Logic X. Then open the page up so you can get to your filing system. Then open the pack up from F9. Grab the 2 Apple Loops folder and just simply drag them in. Now, I'm actually going to move the loops to the loops folder of Apple's hierarchy. That way you're kind of backing things up and it's kind of always good practice. You can now access those loops from any production that you're working up. Come here to where it says Loop Packs. There we go. We're going to use Apple Loops Extra from Drumtrax 4 and we'll pull, let's grab a couple of percussion loops over. And there you go. Totally conforming to tempo, as is the way. And let's have a listen. Now, whilst I have you all, there's just one extra page that I want to show you, and that is one of the active pages that was used to build one of the main audio demos. And the thing I want to show you is, as you can see, the drum tracks are staggered down the page here. There's 3 different sets of drum stems that we've pulled in from the big arrangements. But there are hardly any plugins on the actual drum tracks themselves. A few bits of balancing EQ, but that is pretty much it. Now, we do have some stuff on the master fader, but most of it is dynamics. The only EQ is a high-pass filter and a little bit of stereo work with the Brainworks BX Digital. And with just that amount of processing, we're able to get this sound. Now, to my knowledge, that is absolutely unique amongst sample packs, being able to get a professional level sound like that so quickly from the audio information that comes direct out of the pack. Now, don't forget that we do have WAV formats available as well. You guys are often asking us for drum processing tips, and I want to share with you an excellent workflow that we came up with whilst we were putting this release together. It uses Ali James's excellent EPROM, which is a reinterpretation of the Linn drum machine. The Linn drum machine was an 8-bit machine, and it actually stored its sounds on programmable ROM chips or PROMs. Now, we're not going to use the stock sounds. We're going to take some of our own content, and in this case, I'm going to use some of the drum sounds from this Drumtrax release, and we're going to use a small PC application to turn them into binary files, the kind of files that get written onto EPROMs or PROMs, and then we're going to load these fake chips back into the VPROMer, Ali's VST version of the Lindrum, and harvest some of that 8-bit vibe and chunky sound. So let's choose some sounds to actually throw into the VPROM. These are some single sounds I've got ready. And here's a couple of loops that I want to use. Now, these loops are actually too long to fit onto our virtual EPROM chip. So what I'm going to do is an old sampler's trick. I'm going to speed them up. And I'm going to do that in Ableton by turning off warp and pitching them up by 12 semitones. So they effectively play at double speed. Now that should be just the right file size for us to be able to cram onto our kind of fake chip. Now, one additional step, if we can, is to convert them to half the standard sampling rate. So if the standard sampling rate is 44.1, we want to do it at 22.05. And I'm going to do this inside Myriad, which is a batch processor. There's plenty of other ways of doing it. I believe on many DAWs you can even bounce out at half sample rate. But this allows me to do a couple of steps at once. And now one really important thing before we even start to convert is that I am going to normalize them. You have to think about what we're doing here. We're going to turn these into 8-bit files. So you want as much signal to noise ratio as humanly possible, otherwise it may just get completely unusable. So here, as Myriad is a batch processor, I've got it to set to normalize first and then change the sampling rate to half speed. So let's just run that. Okay, so this is the program we're going to be doing to create the fake EPROMs. It's called Prommer. It's a free utility. All of the documentation and all of the information that you need is easily available online. And all we do here is one at a time, I'm just going to drop the sounds into this bit. And then I'm going to save them out. This is the most important thing, is instead of WAV here, we're going to save these as binary files. Now I'm just going to shove them on the desktop for the moment, and then we'll clean them up later. And I'm just going to repeat that now for all of the rest. So now let's add them back into VPROM. I'm going to press the PROM button on the GUI. Then I'm going to select a sound. We'll use this rim shot. And here where it says stock, there is a switch next to it which will load, as it's just showing you there, load custom EPROM. I'm going to click that. And then let's add in first one of our loops. Now it's going to play back fast, obviously, but this is where the fun starts. I'm just going to tune it down. Let's go back to the main page. And I'm sure you can hear that. That's pure 8-bit filth. And listen to the clap that I've already preloaded. And the kick. So here's a good example of all of this in action. This is a quick beat I've made using nothing more than a few instances of VPROM and the custom samples we processed here. Now, I'm sure you can hear the 8-bit grunge grinding away at all of those drums, and it really does bring something unique. Now, this is one of the hundreds of techniques we've actually used whilst putting this Drumtrax release together. So we're going to stop there, and I hope you've enjoyed this walkthrough of Drumtrax Volume 4 21st Century House. Like all F9 products, this release is designed to get your work at a professional level as fast as possible. We're very proud of this release because we think it can straddle a variety of house genres within one pack, and we know that internally we'll be turning to this pack for our own productions for years. Please keep in touch on social media and let us know if you make anything huge with this release. We're always keen to know what you guys are up to. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.